Hey, everybody. Good to see you again. Daniel Davis here on Daniel Davis's Deep Dive, where we always try to show you things you don't see on all the major media, or tell you parts of the story that you need to know that they might leave out. And that is really the case here today, where we have Sean Hannity talking to Sean Penn about some aspects of the Russia-Ukraine war. Now, as we get into this, you'll see that both men are clearly very passionately devoted to their position, and both men are very clearly passionate for the United States and for seeing the carnage in Ukraine, and I applaud them both for that equally. But there's some things that I think neither one of them understand, and there's things, therefore, that I think that a lot of the viewers don't understand, and let's get into that. Here's a bit of the exchange between Hannity and Sean Penn.
If you're going to support a conflict, Europe has to go all in, and you have to fight a war to win a war. And denying him that weaponry at that moment was critical.
Yeah, again, I'll say that I think there were many elements at play. I don't know to say that President Biden wasn't the dominant voice in that. I do know that later he did say that he didn't feel that they needed them at a certain point.
Yep.
I think that whether it's Republican, Democrat, or anything in between, that I'm very confident that whichever party might support decisive action, complete action in this, it would be a political win, not to mention a principled one. And by action, I mean give them everything they need now rather than bit by bit over the time, because eventually there's not the political will in this country to send U.S. troops there, nor is there the desire of the Ukrainians to have U.S. troops there.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, let's look at the issue that they raised at the beginning, which is that earlier in the war, President Biden did not support giving MiG-29s from allied countries to Ukraine in the war. He was claiming that, well, they don't really need them at that point. And of course, I mean, anyone can tell you that any chance you get to get air power would always be approved, but always be helpful. But here's the issue that we need to have, and this also bleeds into some of the other things that they talk about. There's this belief that if you just give Ukraine enough stuff, if you just give them the F-16s that they're asking for, the ATACMS long-range missiles that they're asking for, all the ammunition that they ask for, more tanks, more artillery pieces, more armored personnel carriers, and all the other support that goes along with it. If we just give them enough, then they're going to win. But that is the biggest single fallacy that most people don't understand. And look, if you've not been in combat, or if you've not studied for your, most of your adult lifetime, as I have, lived through it, fought it, trained it, was professionally developed through it, I have a real understanding of what it takes and what's possible and what's not. I've seen it personally, up close, and it is just graphically on display if you know what to look for here. And we're looking through this understandably with our hearts, and you can see in this, if you watch the full exchange, both Hannity and Penn both are very sincere and want to help people as much as they can. And again, I just really applaud that, because I really think some people don't take enough consideration of the human element of this, and they just are worried about the tactics and whether they're going to win or lose, whether their side's going to win or lose, and they lose sight of the humanity. So I applaud them for that. But here's what they need to understand, and here's where Sean Penn is wrong, is that if Biden and the Republicans and Democrats both together act decisively, is the word he used, it will not have any impact on the outcome of the war, because wars are not fought with machines, they're fought with men. And Ukraine has lost so many men in this battle already, and the fundamentals that go to success and failure in war are not changed and won't be changed if we give them more things. Because, for example, the reasons why this offensive has not succeeded is because the Ukraine side does not have the key things that they need and the training that goes with them. So you may say, well, then we'll just give them more tanks and we'll give them more airplanes. But it's too late for that. You can't build an army on the fly. And I know that a lot of people just think, well, if you just give them this, then of course you'll be able to. But it's just not that way. You need like 5-10 years to really build an army before you ever engage an army to really have a chance to use it. After you've been decimated by potentially a couple 100,000 on the low end, and some suggest it's over 400,000 Ukrainian casualties, but most accepted at least the floor number of 200,000, which is a staggering number. And of course, a majority of those are the ones who have combat experience and a lot of the training that NATO has given them. They've lost a lot of that, even in this own offensive, much less in the year and a half almost that preceded it. And so to now then have these new mobilized troops who don't have any experience, some of them have never even picked up a weapon before, and then think by giving them new large amounts of Western kit that they're suddenly going to succeed is just wrong. I'm just sorry to tell people that, but that's just not how war works. It doesn't matter at this point how many weapons you give them. And if we try to do that, here's what that neither one of these two men know that they really need to understand, and you definitely need to get. If we do what they suggest, and there's many in Congress that want to do this, is to give Ukraine more weapons and more ammunition because that's what they're asking for. Zelensky is at the United Nations this week, and he's going to be making emphatic pleas for exactly that outcome. But what you're going to do is you're going to put more weapons and ammunition in the hands of people who are not qualified to use them and are not going to be able to defeat the much larger and dug in and entrenched Russian army. And you're going to get more people killed, more Ukrainian cities wiped off the face of the map, and you're going to lose even more territory. And ultimately, it's not going to change the outcome. I've been saying this from the outset, from the beginning, and now a year and a half into the war, and after Ukraine had a half a year to prepare for this offensive operation, and it achieved almost nothing. Every graphic evidence you need to show that this war is not going to change the outcome is on display to see for those who are willing to see it. Now, it's easy from our perspective to say, no, just give them more. Let's try, let's find out. But the cost is going to be so much blood and so much more territory. There's just almost no way it can be otherwise. You know, in war, things happen sometimes that beyond expectation, and things happen that no one calculates on. And it's theoretically possible that something like that could happen. The Russian side could collapse. Putin could have a heart attack tomorrow, and everything could change. And certainly that's possible. And I can't discount those things. But the significant majority of the chances and the most probable outcome, like 95% probability, maybe higher, is that Ukraine will not win the war, and to prolong it is only going to increase the bloodshed and the number of casualties they've already grievously suffered. It's time for us to recognize just the reality of this, to see with our own eyes what's happened over the last year and a half, and especially over the 3 or 4 months of this offensive. And we need to understand that for the good of the Ukrainian people who are still alive, who haven't been wounded, who haven't been killed in battle, it's time to take a new approach to try diplomatically to end the war. And that's your deep dive.